I just wanted to talk about Halloween, and now we're on French birth fetishes.
I mean, you just assume it's French.
Is it French?
So here's the thing. It's a legend.
Okay, from what country?
France.
You know what? Fair enough, because he's actually one of the most attractive men alive.
Okay. We're just gonna move past that.
What's wrong with that? You know I'm
The
right.
allegations.
The allegations, brother. Anyway.
I'll take them all.
You've never licked a nipple?
I meant the removal.
It's like how you had that one king who had basically a birth fetish, so he went and had the... Fellas, you're getting distracted. So Rome. You wanted horror.
Talk about Halloween.
We are grown-ups. It's just, we are...
Not horror, all right.
We are 3 ADD grown-ups.
Yeah, you see, you wanted horror, I just skipped the R.
Oh.
Atlanta is Atlantis.
Who starts a conversation like that?
I thought we talked about this yesterday.
Atlanta, apparently.
Did we?
Did we not?
Oh, no, we did. We mentioned it, but I figured that, it'd be good to make a call
bother
back.
me again?
I'm hoping by the time this episode comes out, that whole thing has died down. I don't know. I'm just saying it off the get-go.
By the way, no.
Remember how long Rome Isn't Real went on for? And that was one woman.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
It was one woman.
It wasn't yesterday because it's almost Halloween now, so...
It's a different day entirely. Whoa.
Totally different. 2 weeks ago, actually, we
What?
talked about that.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, depending on when you post
we don't,
them, it's
we don't
2 weeks
shoot.
ago.
Hey.
Time travel.
Hey.
I love you.
I'm doing my best.
You are. We all are.
My best isn't very good.
None of ours
As
are.
best as you.
We're never beating the allegations.
No, not at all, definitely.
I'm kind of okay with it.
It's fine. Okay, so, anyway, today should be October 18th.
That if we go according to the schedule, yes.
If it's not October 18th, that means something went wrong.
Or you're late to the party, and what the hell are you doing watching this 3 weeks after it aired?
Well, we
You
want
dumbass.
Don't be
For the
mean
for the
to
3
slow-
people that are watching it exactly 3 weeks after the 18th, they're going to be really concerned right now.
Listen, if we can invent time travel to go back and intersperse these episodes 2 weeks apart, they can do the same to watch it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to make Atlanta Atlantis.
Oh, no, that never existed in the first place.
Atlantitis.
Atlantitis?
That sound.
Dionysus?
Atlantitis is the disease they got after they all ransacked Atlantis.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. It all comes back to syphilis.
Atlantitis is what people had in the burning buildings after Sherman went through and everything was popping.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
What? Well, we wanted to talk about Civil War and Sherman anyway, because that came up
Well, the point of this
several weeks ago.
This every single time I have an idea and we go into an episode. I'm like, we should talk about this today. It just gets completely derailed immediately.
Dude,
So
we're
about-
18
I'm
episodes
going
in.
to crash out.
So
It is Halloween
I'm
almost.
going to crash out right now.
It almost Halloween.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
There was a lot of orange when Sherman went
Fellas,
through.
fellas.
Fellas, you're getting distracted. So Rome.
What was their water system like?
It was full of lead.
And wood.
Well, the wood doesn't cause nearly as many problems as the lead.
But the lead in the wine did.
Yeah. If you think about it, the boomer generation is probably the closest thing we've had to Romans in a long time.
Oh, with the obsession with wine. Oh,
Such a good point.
fun fact
With how much lead is in their blood.
Yeah.
This is a future episode that I'm going to be doing. Oh
So
yeah,
the
it's
South of
literally lead
Chicago.
and wine.
Yeah.
Boomers
That
are
explains a
lead
lot.
and wine, which I will say this right now. One
Bread
of the
and
future
wine, lead and wine, bread and circus, lead and wine. Mm-hmm.
One of the future episodes that I will be working on is specifically explaining for how the wine industry is dying. It's not dying per se, but there's this. I'm sure that for anyone watching this right now, there's this concept of like, oh yeah, Alpha and Gen Z are like the healthiest generations because they don't drink.
Well, they're also like still half underage.
No,
And they're
no,
also
Gen
all,
Z,
like, vaping.
Gen Z, the oldest ones of Gen Z are getting ready to turn 30.
No.
Yeah.
I'm turning 28 this year, and I'm
Yeah.
technically Gen Z.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
I'm on, like-
yeah, because 95.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends on where you put it. Personally, I think that they're 96 to 99 is a weird little thing that.
I'd rather be Gen Z than millennial.
So
it's
in the past couple years ago, all these things were coming out that were saying like, oh, Gen Z is the healthiest generation because they're not smoking cigarettes and they're not drinking alcohol.
Okay, apparently there are two different Gen Zs.
No, that's the thing. That in terms of overall numbers, they are not. And then it just completely ignores how it's like, oh, well, that doesn't mean that they're sober.
Yeah.
Because they're not.
There's other
because
things.
the vaping amount is drastically up, combined with other substances and things that are consumed and or done.
Zins.
Which
It's the gap between the Gen Z people who were adults before COVID and the ones who became adults after COVID.
Yeah. The amount of surprising numbers of people I've seen on TikTok that are like 25 and younger, generally between like 21 or 2 and 25, that are like doing hashtag and like talking about like no vape and like X amount of days off of a vape. I did not realize it was as prevalent as it was.
Oh, yeah.
Or as prevalent of a problem as it was.
yeah.
It started when we were in high school, dude.
No, I know, but I
thing, yeah.
I know, but I didn't
even know
realize
it was a thing until my freshman year in college when I first went, and it bothered me.
I think it's very funny that like e-cigarettes began as a way to help you stop smoking and get off of nicotine eventually. And then they were like, the industry was like, now what if we made the mango flavored?
Well, we
and
always
sold
made
them
fun of the
kids.
people who vaped, though.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
we did.
surprised it was as large as it ended up being.
A lot of places ended up banning flavoring specifically because of
Yeah.
what was happening for drawing in the younger population.
What was the...
But the big reason I even bring that up, I cannot remember off the top of my head for what it was.
The only brand I can think of right now is our good vape alternative, Fume.
Oh yeah, Fume. If only this episode were scheduled for a Fume ad.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be funny. I did a Fume
nice.
ad years ago.
We do them all the
Explaining
time.
because
we
I
do
find
them,
the
like,
technology
once a
was
month.
actually quite interesting. But
Yeah, we work a lot with everybody's like, hey, Fume uses unregulated essential oils that you breathe in, so like you shouldn't advertise for it because that's dangerous. And I'm sitting here like, we advertise this as a way to stop smoking.
Yeah.
Like breathing in some essential oils is not nearly as bad for you as breathing in tar. And
Or
we pretty
carcinogens.
explicitly
Yeah.
advertise it as, like, regardless of how Fume does their marketing independently, our marketing for Fume is exclusively a way to stop smoking and vaping.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, you shouldn't breathe in essential oils. I'm like, can we maybe pay attention to the context?
Yeah.
yeah, it's fair enough.
Hey, guys, nuance exists, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's important. Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I bring this up because the wine industry overall, like especially in the United States, is dying. I say dying. It's reduced by like about 10 or 15% in only the last couple of years.
Oh, wow.
Which is a really big cut. And the reason is largely because, again, as the boomers are gradually dying out now, and they were the heaviest drinkers of wine that specifically were pushing that because it was a mark of status to be a wine drinker over the course of the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it was a big mark after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
You look at it now, and that is not nearly as common among Gen Z.
Yeah.
Millennials, kind of, if they can afford it to a degree, and have picked up some of it, but not nearly to the same degree.
The new generation
As
just
what
doesn't respect
Boomer
all
and Gen
the
X
wines
were.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what has happened now is that in places like in California, where there are millions of acres, where it's just wine production, you are seeing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres that are they were grown, and then there is no one to actually buy said wine or like the product of the grapes because it's already overstocked because no one is buying it. So the grapes are being left to rot, and then from there, because like you're not going to pay
They
for
need to
labor.
remarket. They need to change the marketing for wine. Like everybody thinks, it's what my parents drank. No, wine's sick. Wine's great. Wine is like the best way to get drunk.
Also, though, like, worst case scenario, all the vineyards get turned into, like, other agricultural farming. Not the worst thing in the world.
No, but you have to think about investment. It's not a matter of even when you look at what happens in the case of a small farmer that loses a crop one year, that is a massive blow.
Oh, yeah, they're
that
cooked,
is very
yeah.
hard to recover from. And in the case of like wine, the amount of investment that it takes in order to get that up and running in the first place is much larger than someone who says, oh yeah, hey, I'm going to plant a field of corn.
Yeah.
Way larger. So the loss that they incur from not being able to sell it is much larger.
Yeah. Well, and the margins of normal farming are so, like, horrible anyway.
Razor thin.
So when
And
you
people
have...
don't understand that.
Yeah, so when
We
you
need to
have...
introduce American wines to the Asian countries.
Whiskeys already kind of have. They're not really big so much into wine, but
We'll get 'em there.
For spirits, they are big, and it is actually a big mark of status for
Get the Chinese hooked on wine. We have been very successful at hooking them on things in the past.
It is true. It is true. And that,
what?
ironically enough,
Opium.
that is one of the things that
Didn't
China
they
has specifically been
start
trying to boost.
opium? Like, didn't opium come from the Southeast Asia?
Sort of.
Sort of, but the British were like, hey, what if we gave this to the Chinese?
Because it already did have a cult, because it was used for medicine.
So
A lot of things were used for medicine.
where did opium originate?
It grows a lot in Afghanistan.
It's Central Asia. So largely where it primarily came from was Central Asia, from Afghanistan, Persia, heading up into like Uzbekistan and that region here. That's where a lot of the poppy would be, where it comes from. And then there would be other places, but this is where it's like the ideal climate to basically grow it there. So it would grow in massive numbers. You could grow it in other places, and that's where they would grow and use for medicinal purposes or whatever they would do. But when you were able to produce a ton more of it, way cheaper, you can basically flood the market, and then go figure it's an addictive substance.
Yeah. So they basically were like, hey, guys, you can do this even when you're not sick.
Yeah.
And they were like, why would we? And then we're like, have you
They're
tried
just
it?
like, it feels good, brother.
Yeah. Have you tried it? You'll tell pretty quickly.
And the thing is, it wasn't like it was British officers going into like the local slums and being like, hey kid, you want some
Yeah, they
opium?
weren't the CIA distributing crack.
Yeah. Also, speaking of like slowly transitioning to Halloween stuff, Supernatural, Jensen Ackles. Did you hear that apparently Jensen is getting made fun of online because he shaved his beard for the first time in a few years and people are calling him ugly?
He didn't have a beard for the whole entirety of Supernatural.
Uh-huh.
How does this connect to opium?
No, it doesn't. It's a non,
Okay,
it's
we're just doing a hard shift.
yeah, it's a
It's
non sequitur
copium.
over toward
Copium.
yeah, it's copium because he's
Yeah.
actually one of the most attractive men alive.
Okay, we're just gonna move past that.
What's wrong with that? You know I'm
The
right.
allegations.
The allegations, brother. Anyway,
I'll take them all,
Jensen Ackles also
along with the allegations.
is one of the greatest actors of our day, and his best work is not Supernatural. It's not the show he was on for 15 years, and it's not the movie he was in where Alec Baldwin shot a woman and should be charged with murder for it, or at least manslaughter. But
He was.
Yeah, but they didn't convict him.
Yeah.
He should have been convicted of manslaughter. Like, if you're handed a gun, you check the chamber. I don't care what Hollywood's stupid rules are. Maybe you shouldn't let people who live in a state where guns are banned make the regulations about checking the chamber in a gun.
He also hates them in the first
hang on,
place.
hang on. As a film person here, I do need to interject a little bit here. The scene called for like dummy bullets to be in. The armorer and everyone else on set up to that point confirmed that it was fine.
Hey, Steven, if I hand you a gun and I tell you it's not loaded and you point it at somebody and shoot them and kill them, whose fault is it?
No. But here's the thing:
It is mine. You would still be liable
But here's
as
the thing.
part of it, but it would be something that I would have to check.
This
because
is
you
the
are
problem.
required.
It's not a Hollywood thing. It's a gun thing. If somebody hands you a gun, you check the chamber.
Yeah, here's the thing: it was intended to be loaded, just not with real rounds.
I know.
How is somebody who's not familiar with guns supposed
They
to tell the
don't
difference
look the
between
same.
on a film set?
No,
they
they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
On a
Dummy
film set,
rounds
yes,
do-
they do.
Dummy rounds and blanks are very distinguishable from live bullets.
Correct. Not on a film set.
So the film sets use special dummy rounds that look exactly like real bullets.
Yes,
I
that's the point.
Okay.
And also, the only reason that live rounds were on the set is because the armorer illegally
Mm-hmm.
brought live ammunition on set to use in the firearms, not during filming. When like a bunch of people got drunk and were shooting.
Who was
the
the
thing.
producer of the film?
I don't know.
Alec Baldwin.
Well, one of them, yeah.
Yeah, it's still his fault.
All I'm saying is it's a much bigger gray area than
I-
you're giving it credit for.
I don't care. You shot somebody because you didn't bother to make sure that the bullets in the gun you were handed were the right kind of bullets. If you're the producer on the film or if you're the one handling the weapon, you should know what they.
It's the armorer's fault in that.
It is the armorer's fault. It's also Alec Baldwin's.
To an extent, yes.
Any gun person will tell you this is on Alec Baldwin.
Honestly, this whole thing was supposed to be going into like Halloween and horror, and this is like, we're getting into criminal behavior for things. Yeah,
No, I mean, the thing. A point being is that there are so many things that happen on a film set. It's primarily the armorer's job to ensure it's
It
safe.
is. It's also anyone handling a gun's job to make sure that the proper kind of ammunition is in it.
Agree.
Ergo, Alec Baldwin shot a woman and it's his fault. Anyway, Jensen Ackles' best work is clearly Countdown.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal television.
Have you seen this?
No, see, here's the thing, and this is going to get me a lot of hatred for stuff. I genuinely don't watch many things.
It's
And
okay.
haven't
I
for a
don't think
long time.
anybody has watched Countdown except us.
For some godforsaken reason.
Yeah, I can't understand it. It's the best show on television.
Nobody seems to give it the time of day that it deserves.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's a show where Jensen Ackles is a crack LA cop with a glioblastoma the size of a banana.
Wow. All right.
And
it's written by the guy who made Chicago Fire
Chicago Med.
and Chicago PD.
And
Chicago.
Yeah, a lot of
of
Chicago. This
Chicago.
does not take place in Chicago. This is LA.
this is LA. Also, the countdown is multifaceted.
Oh yeah.
Because there's the countdown to when this glioblastoma is going to destroy his brain finally. And then there's also the countdown of when the nuke is going to go off in LA.
Yes, the nuke that is, being brought in by a terrorist who was originally definitely written to be Ukrainian.
Yes, but is not Belarusian. And,
Now he's Belarusian.
Yes.
Because, events.
And they assemble a crack team of outcasts from a variety of different departments across.
Yes, all of
state?
whom are bad people,
Yes.
sort of.
The main female is she's on the DEA, but
She's in the DEA, yeah.
she also was a heroin addict for a
Aaron,
while.
yeah, it's a whole thing.
Because while undercover, she was forced to take it. And then
And by
obviously
the
got
way,
addicted.
we're not even spoiling anything because it's all so blatant and in your face. This is all meant to come as, shock twists, but it's TV written for people with an IQ of 85.
So they actually tell you.
And that might be the upper tier.
Yeah. They actually they don't show it.
This
They
is
just
the
tell
kind
you.
of show that's meant to go on in coma patients' rooms. Because they're probably the only people who might be entertained by it.
All right.
But it's phenomenal.
It's amazing because Jensen really does deliver just out of the park performances, and then the script will tell him to go, yeah. He gives a great monologue for 2 minutes about his backstory, and it's really well done. And then another character says something, and then his response is, yeah.
It's amazing. Also, he just plays Dean Winchester in everything he's in. I love it.
He does. It's phenomenal.
My Bloody Valentine, he's basically literally playing Dean Winchester.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. But he's a janitor or something. It's been a while since I saw the movie. Anyway, we somehow did manage to wiggle our way back towards Halloween.
To a degree, yes.
To a degree.
I like the hand motion for Wiggle there as well.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Halloween, we got to talk about its connection to Samhain, and Samhain's Irish, and you know what else is Irish, Aiden?
Nipple licking.
What?
Yes, I was going more with Fenton.
What? No, hang on. What? Explain.
We already did. Those are the previous episodes.
I'm gonna
Use
use
a whole episode.
I'm gonna hit
Not the forbidden bonk stick.
I'm gonna use the forbidden bonk stick.
the
final bonk.
Remember the whole thing about the
Final bonk. History Unhinged last episode. History Unhinged, the final bonk.
bigger, longer, unbonked.
The whole Patreon segment is just the ambulance ride to the hospital.
Remember, we did that in the previous episode where it's the Irish kings or Irish figures that were discovered in the bogs with their nipples cut off, and the whole theory behind it is about how, as a form of supplication, the ancient Irish kings would have their nipples sucked by those who were
Now I'm remembering.
kowtowing to them, basically.
them.
God, people are weird.
Yeah.
They always have been weird.
Stop kink shaming. God.
That's not kink shaming. That's a hate crime.
You've never licked a nipple?
I meant the removal.
It's like how you had that one king who had basically a birth fetish, so he went and had the chair constructed that would have the woman lie flat on her back so that everything was visible.
What?
What?
Yeah.
Where was this?
I'm gonna bring up the exact one here. So I
If
can
this was
show you-
French, I swear to God.
Wait, so they would just bring in pregnant people to give birth, and he would just sit there and watch?
I'll show you. Hold on.
I just wanted to talk about Halloween, and now we're on French birth fetishes.
I thought you just assume it's French.
Is it French?
It's so here's the thing. It's a legend, all right, with it here. It's association. It's made as a joke when talking about
Okay,
this.
from what country?
France.
You know what? Fair enough.
So the rumor, and this is not something that is you can't say this is like, oh yeah, this absolutely happened, because this is the kind of thing that
I will be saying this absolutely.
this is what you would see in articles where it's like, did you know that? And then it's like list off some things that are not actually provable.
Oh yeah, did we ever talk
Is the
about
king in question one of the Louis?
Dude, it's France. What do you think the odds of that are?
Pretty high, actually.
Very fucking high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Louis XIV.
I would have guessed it was Louis XIV, too.
incredible?
I was working towards that. I was going to guess which monarch.
We talked about the AI history videos back from a while ago.
Yeah, we
right?
did.
So, as the article goes in here, there's plenty of evidence that shows that when giving birth in positions such as squatting, kneeling, or getting on your hands and knees rather than lying on your back, that x-rays have shown that the pelvic outlet becomes wider in squatting on your hands and knees, which
we
helps to shorten
definitely
labor.
We have totally screwed up the way people give birth.
So the evidence largely suggests that lying on your back during birth prolongs labor and slows contractions, yet the majority of women in the U.S. give birth in this position. So how did humans end up giving birth in the position in the first place? Well, rumor has it that it's because a perverted king enjoyed his wives giving birth in this position so he could watch way back in 17th century France. The position has only been widespread in Western culture for the past 200 years, and though it did originate in 17th century France, King Louis XIV is not actually to blame, as much as many people would say online for different articles. Now, mind you, to understand this, he had 22 children. Which is not the most. The most of any European
With one wife?
no,
Okay.
varying
I was
wives.
gonna say.
So the
Wait. Just, I need you to clarify here. You said varying wives. Were these wives because the wives had died, or because he got divorced?
I forget. It's more so from like death, dying in childbirth, etc.,
okay.
that sort of thing. But what one needs to the European monarch that has the most children that is legally provable, because remember, you could just be literally sleeping with anyone at that point and you could make a bunch of kids, was the not king, but like Duke of Saxony. And it was Augustus.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, I think, was on record for having at least 63
The
children.
guy who was also the king of Poland?
Yes.
Okay.
63.
Known as the Strong. Dude was built like a brick. And I don't mean that like just ripped or jacked. I mean, he was just a big guy in general. Kind of larger, but also tall and massive and strong of frame. Like, yeah, a lot.
Gladiator style.
Wow.
Are you looking him up?
I just
me see
looked
him.
up it's the first time I've ever seen under a figure from history where it says issue, as in their children, where there's a drop down for more.
Yep. Yep.
Because we've got Louis the Grand Dauphin, Maria Theresa, the Philippe Charles, Louis Francois, and then
You're not looking.
illegitimate.
You're not looking at Saxon. You're looking at 14.
I'm looking at Louis the 14th.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
the Saxony one is even worse, but yeah. Then there's illegitimate Marianne, Louise, Francois, and once again Louis. He named all of his kids. Almost all of his kids are named Louis.
Yep.
Real original.
Yep. You go after it. Yep. So.
Did he know other names?
Now, as a king, he had very good reason to have many children, given, of course, that you need an heir. That's kind of like the whole point. But apparently, he
Well, a lot of
liked
them were
to watch his
illegitimate, too.
wives and mistresses. So it's not just like its wife and also the varying mistresses that he had, pushing out his children. Because remember, mistress of the king was an official title within France. Like that wasn't like something that was, oh, this is the colloquial name. Is like, no, that was an official title within court that one could be granted.
I'm having such a victorious moment as an Anglican here right now.
However, the famed 17th century French doctor Francois Marceau is generally credited with influencing the change in position, which had begun to slowly gain popularity in France late 1500s, as reclining bed birthing was both comfortable for women and accessible to the midwives and surgeons. It is sometimes credited to Louis because he, quote, enjoyed watching women give birth. He became frustrated by the obscured view of birth when it occurred on a birthing stool. This according to Professor Lauren Dundes, writing in the American Journal of Public Health. Because of this, he promoted the new reclining position. Now, scholars have claimed that he liked to watch for perverted reasons. According to the study, the masses may have been influenced by the king, who actually promoted birthing position, and since there it spread. So, This is, again, one of those things where people like to blame him for this. It's like a thing that can be promoted, yes, but there is no reason necessarily for it to continue. It's just there were a number of surgeons that wanted this, not because it was easier on the mother necessarily. Like, it was a more comfortable position, yes, of course, rather than squatting for hours on end, potentially. But it made it their job easier for when they had to actually handle things on the midwifery side, and if the birth was going bad and they had to take a knife and cut. Made it a lot easier for them. So horrifying things on this Halloween episode.
Yeah, I was going to say,
You're
happy
getting a
Halloween,
birthing
guys.
Special.
I don't know what I expected, honestly. That's on me.
Out of that story or this episode?
This episode as a whole, yeah. This is on me. This is my fault for thinking we could be grown-ups.
You see, you wanted horror.
Talk about Halloween.
We are grown-ups. It's just, we are
Not horror, all right.
we are 3 ADD grown-ups.
Yeah, you see, you wanted horror. I just skipped the R.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. There's a reason this show's audience skews so male.
There are several reasons this show
That's a fair
skews
point.
male.
There are a good amount of women.
No, there are a good amount of
They
women.
made themselves
especially-
known
Yeah,
after I said that last time.
We appreciate you.
we do.
We do.
We definitely do.
We definitely do.
Not
I have no idea how to steer this back towards Halloween right now.
So-
I'm at a loss.
was Samhain as horrific as something as horrific
No,
as
it's kind of
King
a party.
Louis. So what how did it become horrific?
It didn't.
I mean in terms of eventually the Halloween.
That's my point. Is it didn't.
Okay.
This happens with every holiday.
Horror movies, basically. That's the thing. It's not that it actually becomes that way. It's that there is a media movement that kind of pushes an idea.
Yeah, like
I don't know,
trigger-
some of the color or costumes from like the 20s are pretty freaking horrific.
Oh yeah, but the idea that goes back to Celtic practices is basically an invention of the 20th century.
So where does the bastardization come from? What is Samhain and how did we end up with people thinking it was the origin of Halloween?
So pigs.
What?
Sow.
Oh my god. Well, so first of all, first of all, anything Wiccans say, you can just tune out.
Oh, immediately.
'Cause their religion only came about in 1954, and it was made up by a British guy who thought getting people to convert to something other than Christianity would make them more slutty.
You got to give a
Which,
little bit more backstory there.
To be fair, if the goal of Wicca was to get women to be more slutty, Gerald Gardner did succeed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
before we dive into Samhain, give a little more backstory there because I think most people are not aware of this as well.
Wicca?
They're aware of it. They don't know the origins.
Oh,
of it.
yeah. So a lot of people, Wicca is basically the original form of neo-paganism. It's not the first kind, but it's kind of the granddaddy of the ones that we have today. Because most neo-pagans that you run into, like, and this is not me trying to disrespect anybody's religious beliefs, but most neo-pagans you run into are not, sacrificing a goat at Yule. Like, they're not doing the things that actual ancient pagans did. It's more of a spiritual successor than a legitimate.
As a heads up on that, there are slight interruption on
Said
this.
most.
There is, within the last couple of years, has been a drastic increase in reports of human sacrifice. Of sacrifice that humans are doing.
All right, well, you know what? I respect that. Commit to the bit.
That has actually been happening. There are increased numbers. So animal, there have been increases in reports of animal abuse where they then discover sacrificed remains of animals.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's not great.
But yeah, so Wicca basically grows out of this druidic revival movement of the Druidic Society of Britain, which originated, I think, in the 1920s and claimed to be practicing the ancient rites and rituals of the Celtic Druids.
That were never written down.
Yeah, that were never written down and that were basically mostly completely unrecorded because the only people recording any of this at any point were Christians. Anyway, it had nothing to do with actual druidic practices. It was basically LARPing. They had a general idea of how they thought this worked, and it was also mostly English people.
What really were druidic practices?
Great question.
That's the thing. We don't really know. So that's why whenever anyone says, like, oh, this is something that was absolutely done by the ancient druids, this is what they believe. Like, no, you may have an inkling of an idea, but your thought is no more than 10% complete at any given time.
And druids were also just like a class of people.
Yeah,
right?
Druid was the way Celtic society was stratified. You had the king at the top, and then beneath him, you typically had the warrior class, and then the druids. But the druids also might be above the warrior class. They might be...
It's more like a separate pyramid.
Yeah,
entirely.
along with it. They kind of... It depended on which Celtic society you were talking about and which time period you were talking about. But the druids were sort of a class that was separate, but they were definitively above the artisans and the landowners and the slaves. So druids kind of were they were the priestly class, but they were also the professional class. They were the medical class. So anything that would be seen as a profession today would likely have been performed by a druid. They would have been the ones that were recording the laws. They would have been the ones advising kings on legal practices when people came to make complaints. So while they were sort of mystical figures and the chiefs of the religion, they weren't just religious figures, and they did a lot more.
So you could have a dentist who was a druid.
Basically,
well, I mean, back then you didn't have dentists.
Yes, but like,
there are evil spirits in your mouth that are making your teeth rot. We're going to use these practices to remove said tooth and cleanse you.
You have ghosts in your bones.
Yeah.
Basically.
So also we don't know for sure that they even did things like human sacrifice that they're often accused of doing. That only comes from Roman sources. I don't believe Gildas mentions any human sacrifice, and he would actually be a British source who would be living contemporaneously with Druids. Although the Romans did go in and try and stamp out the practice as much as possible, because the Druids were not super into the idea of accepting Roman authority.
They also didn't share anything. That's one of the big things you need to understand, is that one of the reasons we don't have knowledge about Druids is not just because of the efforts to wipe them out, but because the way that their practices worked in the first place is that they retained their authority by keeping their practices secret. So stuff wasn't written down, oral tradition, trained within your class. And then all that knowledge was retained, and it wasn't shared on the outside to keep the position of power and privilege.
Yeah, it was, so they didn't write anything down. They did have a writing system that was called Ohm. They just didn't really use it for anything druidic. It was used for other things sparingly and mostly accounting. Like, it was basically just used for, day-to-day stuff where you needed to keep records of things. But it wasn't used for the great Celtic legends. It wasn't used for spiritual practices. Most of what we know about ancient Celtic spiritual practices comes from Christian monks recording what the Celts believed. And to their credit, in that portion of the world, it's probably one of the places where Christianization had the least effect. Because, yeah, you did kind of change some things around, but there was also, for about 5.5 centuries, the church in Britain was not really all that connected to the Roman church.
No, you had basic doctrine and support like that came out of Canterbury, etc.
Yeah.
But if you're going into, say, Ireland and whatnot, it was almost entirely separate because it was far more monastic,
And
essentially. So it was far more, the local leadership within an area was far more important than what came outside.
But you did have priests, you did have bishops. Like, the practice continued onwards from Aristobulus of Britain, who's the character who originally brings it over. Nobody's sure exactly who he is, but there's some claims that he was Joseph of Arimathea. There's some claims that he was Nicomedes, I think. But nobody knows exactly who he was. But he's the one who, in legend, brings Christianity to Britain in the 1st century, like around the 50s. He shows up. He preaches Christianity. A whole bunch of British people convert. And then when the Romans get there, there's already Christianity in Britain. Rome is not Christian yet. They get to Britain and there's Christians, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So the British church is as old as the Roman church, as the Antiochene church, as all of the original churches. But it was so far flung on the edge of the world that it really did not have a ton of communication with the rest of the churches, especially up in the northern Celtic territories. And then what happens is when the Roman legions withdraw in, what was that, 422?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, when the Roman legions withdraw and Rome withdraws as a whole, while there had been a connection, but the papacy was not nearly as powerful yet. It did not have the situation that it had 500 years later.
No, papacy does not begin to gain authority until, actual real authority until going into the 700s.
Yeah. So they're kind of doing their own thing up in Britain. And we know this for a fact because when Rome finally does send a missionary, Augustine of Britain, they send him there in 597 AD. He gets there and he's like, yo, there's Christians here. He's sent to Christianize the Saxons, not the Celts. So he gets there and he's like, hey, there's Christians in Britain, and they do things differently from us. So while the Roman Church likes to claim that the papal authority has been from Peter onwards in perpetuity without any interruption, clearly there was a period of time where Britain and Rome were not communicating.
Well, I don't think it's an interruption so much as that is a separate offshoot from something that, it's not going backwards. It's a divergence in the road at some point.
Yeah.
So that authority that they claim would still be true, but it's completely ignoring any other forks in the road that are, as an example, the Nestorians and those that ended up going out east. Yeah. There were other forks that took place.
There were. Yeah, but the point is that there's a distinct period of time where British Christianity exists independently of Roman Christianity, not in schism, not in heresy. It's just there's no way for them to communicate effectively.
It's just in parallel, essentially.
Yeah, in parallel. And it's not something that split off. It's something that came there in the first century and developed.
So bringing this back to the Druidic Wicca pipeline.
I'm getting there. I know. I'm getting there. Don't worry. So, yes. So Christianity is in Britain, but because Christianity in Britain is kind of doing its own thing for a very long time, it's interacting side by side with Druidic practice. It's not necessarily taking on the aspects of it. In fact, it really didn't. But because they're more familiar with it, and because it is so culturally imbued into Celtic society, you have, a version of Christianity that doesn't necessarily see the idea of fairies, like the Fae folk, as being anti-Christian. They see them as something that exists alongside Christianity, and that these gods are real, but that they're beneath our God. And that the people who worship them are basically doing the same thing.
Well, are they seen as gods or are they seen as spirits, essentially?
Lowercase g gods. Yeah, okay. So Elohim, spiritual beings, deities with power, the same way that the Israelites saw the Canaanite deities, where it was these exist and they have power, but our God is the true God and he's more powerful. So it was a very similar situation. You can see this in the writing. There's a lot of comparison to ancient Israel, pre-Christian Israel in British writing. So British Christianity carries through a lot of these Celtic pagan spiritual beliefs, not necessarily within itself, but in its recordings and in its writings, saying, a lot of the times as polemic debates against the Celts, saying they believe in these things and here's what we believe and here's why we're right. But they don't do much of the extinguishing that you think of, that a lot of people accuse the Christian church of doing. They don't get rid of these ideas. They record that they were there, and then they beat them. That's at least how they see it. So Samhain gets recorded pretty accurately, as do most of the Celtic holidays, most of the Celtic legends coming from pre-Christian society. The only reason we know about Cuchulainn is Christians. The only reason we know about Finn McCool is Christians. The only reason we know about the Two a Day is Christians. And they recorded these basically, for the most part, as what they were, with sort of insertions of trying to bring Celtic narratives into the Christian story, because the goal wasn't to take this and just tell people, hey, you can't believe any of the stuff you believed anymore. That was never the way they operated.
It was to incorporate in almost the same way that the Jesuits did for a number of things.
Basically to find a way to explain how that would exist within a Christian framework.
Yes, and with things like, for example, Samhain and Halloween and All Saints' Day, one of the arguments is that, Halloween, which is All Hallows' Eve, which is the night before All Saints' Day, that was one of the arguments is that originated because you had Christian priests trying to convert a pagan holiday into a Christian one. When in reality, All Saints' Day originated in Syria, and it was on May 13th back in the 4th century. So All Saints' Day is Syrian. It's not British Celtic Christianity at all. It eventually makes its way up there, and in the 700s, it's like the late 700s, gets moved to November 1st. That actually is the one place where it's sort of correct. And what might have happened is that Alcuin of Northumbria might have been trying to take All Saints' Day and make it more familiar to the Celts, to make it easier to convert them.
I mean, at that point, we literally just talked about at the time when the papacy actually started sending legates and other up north, which would have been a time of trying to incorporate them and standardizing the belief system, which would have meant that you would start switching things around in order to be able to incorporate people further.
So it wasn't that
would
they
line
stole
up
the holiday
perfectly in the 700s.
It was just that they took the date, because there was a holiday on November 1st. It was Samhain. But Samhain wasn't about the dead.
What was Samhain about?
Samhain was about the harvest.
So
Samhain was the end of Samhain was the new year for them.
So what exactly, based on the description written down by the Christians at the time, what happened during Samhain?
Samhain was the day of the year when, first of all, it was the new year. It was the Celtic New Year, because they didn't go by the equinoxes. They went by the harvest. So you had Bealtaine was, I think, May 1st. Imbolc is in February. Samhain is in November, and I'm blanking on the fourth holiday. By the way, and this is what I was saying about Wicca. They have 8, and they claim it's Celtic paganism, and they just took 4 from Celts and 4 from the Norse and mashed them together as if those weren't 2 completely different systems.
We'll explain more about what they did to all of this in a minute.
Yeah. So Samhain was the day of the year when the veil between the other world and our world was at its thinnest. And I think what happened, and this is also a scholarly position, is that Christians, to an extent, and some scholars, misunderstood the way that Celtic spirituality worked and believed that the other world was their version of the underworld. It's not. It is, you do get there by going underground or across the Western Sea, but it's not necessarily the realm of the dead. And in the Irish mythology, it's actually extremely more complex. In Welsh mythology, it's basically just like another version of our realm that's ruled by spiritual beings. In the Irish version, you've got little pocket dimensions. And then you do have a land of the dead in the other world, but then you also have other places in the other world. You have isles and fairy realms and things like this. So on Samhain, it wasn't just that might be the day that you were closest to the dead. That's the day that you're closest to a day, the day that you are closest to any spiritual being in any of those other pocket dimensions, the day when it's easiest to access them, and therefore the day when it makes the most sense to give thanks to the gods, because that's when you're closest to them. So they would hold these harvest festivals. There would be some sacrifices to their gods. There would be feasting. There would be games, things like that. And it was just generally people making merry. There's no evidence that it was seen as a solemn occasion.
I mean, for a harvest celebration, that is exactly how it would work quite literally all over the world. Hell, the whole point in the first place is that Britain had a later growing season. Yep. So seeing something like that at the very beginning of November would absolutely make sense, because you wouldn't really be able to do as much the way of planting until mid to potentially late spring over the course of, with British weather, considering how rainy and cold it would be at different times. That means that instead of harvesting in, say, September or October, you probably would start harvesting in that time here, and it would take like a month in order to be able to do so. But you have a later harvest that takes place before winter sets in.
Yeah. So we have no evidence that Samhain was in any way a commemoration of the dead. Meanwhile, All Saints' Day is entirely a commemoration of the dead. It would have a feast, but what feast meant kind of varied at the time. But basically, it was a solemn occasion. You did have feasting, and you did have people who would be, to an extent, like celebrating, because it was a celebration of the saints and the martyrs, but it wasn't a harvest festival at all. One is distinctly a harvest festival. One is distinctly a commemoration of the dead. Those are not the same holiday. The only thing they have in common at that point in history is the date, because as for trick-or-treating, that's the oldest one we can really look at, because it goes back to like the 14th century, probably. Might be even older than that. John Merck writes that it's already an old practice by the time that he's writing, but we have no evidence that it goes all the way back. And at the time, it was called souling, which really suggests it had nothing, because we have nothing in the Celtic practices about, in this case, baking cakes and then distributing them. That's what souling was. You would bake cakes, or you would buy and then distribute cakes, and this was a way to go to people, and there were a couple of different ways you could look at it. It was either, by giving up something, by sacrificing your labor or your money to provide these cakes, and again, it was really just bread. It was food.
And I'm guessing it was honey, probably.
Yeah,
it was
probably.
like honeyed bread.
It was probably a honey cake. By distributing these, you were doing a service. You were doing a good work, and you could dedicate that good work, or you could ask somebody, in giving them the cake, hey, if I give you this cake, will you pray on my behalf for my beloved souls in purgatory? Samhain couldn't have had souling because they don't have purgatory.
I was going to say, so how early and in what facet was purgatory present in Christianity?
By the time that souling's being written about, the Catholic Church had, I think, dogmatized purgatory.
And this is at what time period?
Oh, like the 1300s.
Okay.
You also got to remember this is a period in which you have holding for indulgences, and one of the whole purpose for stuff for indulgences was like, oh yeah, you donate all this money to the church and do this, and it's like the prayers and stuff that we do, and it will shorten their time in purgatory from potentially 1,000 years to maybe they'll only be there for a dozen.
This was a very proper form of indulgences, though.
Short tangent. When and how did the idea of purgatory develop in Christianity?
It's very old, the idea that there is a place you go after death that is not necessarily heaven or hell, because only pure souls, a soul cannot enter heaven with sin, is the idea.
Okay.
Everybody has sin. Everybody dies in sin.
How does last rites?
So when did purgatory become doctrine?
I'm not super familiar with last rites, to be honest, but it's not.
Okay.
No Catholic will tell you that every Catholic who dies goes immediately to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So the Second Council of Lyon in 1274 is when the Catholic Church defined for the first time its teaching on purgatory, and then it was officially proclaimed as dogma in 1438.
Yes. So it was definitely floating around there. The Orthodoxy does not have purgatory. They have a different concept, but it's still that there is a space between heaven and hell after death. The idea that there is something else that goes on after your life where you do have a purification process in order to enter heaven. So if somebody lived a mostly sinless life, they died and they had repented and everything like that, they will probably have a very short time in purgatory. They're mostly going to go straight to heaven. And saints, the idea is that somebody who's proclaimed a saint is somebody who probably was so holy they went straight to heaven.
Again,
somebody who genuinely accepted Christianity at the very end of their life, but was not either was only a nominal Christian or wasn't a very good one, something like that, all through their life up until their death, and then they very sincerely repented of their sins, did what they could to make amends, and then died. That person might have the idea would be that person has a long time in purgatory to have their sins washed away, to be absolved, to be purified, so that they can enter heaven. And the idea was that through indulgences, be that through something like soul cakes, something like requesting prayers, or through just giving the church money, which wasn't a great way of doing it.
But I need to stress this in the first place. It wasn't just give the church money. It was, the church is trying to build a new orphanage, or they're opening up a new church and they're trying to pay for the art that is going to go on said church. So they will do a series of collections. It's like, yes, I will donate 1,000 florins to this church construction project. That's the indulgence.
Yeah.
Well, they still have those in Catholic masses today.
Tithes are different. Tithes and collections are a little bit different.
Yeah, this is an additional thing that is given specifically as a payment directly to the church.
That's charity. Charity is to give something of yourself willingly and happily, even though it's a sacrifice. An indulgence was a transactional thing.
Exactly.
So giving somebody a soul cake that you paid for or baked yourself in exchange for their prayers would be a form of an indulgence, and the idea was that through doing so, you could shorten the time of your loved ones in purgatory. And that seems to be, so far as I was able to trace it back, and we have an episode on this on Lore Lodge that is old, so it's not quite as structured as our newer ones, but it goes into all the reasoning for this, and I cited some sources in it too. If you go back and you look at it, I could not find a place where we have documentation of a similar practice amongst the Celts, especially the Gaels, And I could not find a moment where we know it existed at the same time as Celtic paganism. So Celtic paganism is basically wiped out by the year 1000.
Oh yeah.
There might be a hermit or a small community here and there, but it's not widespread. And they're not writing any of it down either. So by 1000, that's done. We don't get descriptions of souling and soul cakes, though we are told that it's an old practice. That could mean 100 years. That could mean 500 years. We don't know, in 1380. So and the fact that it's oriented around purgatory, and there's really nothing in Celtic mythology where that could have come in, really suggests that souling is an originally Christian practice. Like, for example, Christmas caroling comes from wassailing, which is a Christian practice. So it really looks like the trick-or-treating aspect, which developed out of the soul cakes and the souling aspect, that is originally Christian. Then you look at something else like the jack-o'-lanterns, and there are some possible origination points for that in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Like in the case of the turnips.
Yeah, which is...
The turnips?
Oh, yeah, and originally it wasn't pumpkins, because pumpkins weren't a thing in Europe. It was turnips. And if you, on your phone right now, look up...
Oh, they're horrifying.
Look up Halloween turnips.
They're
For
terrifying.
anyone who has not seen this right now, look up Halloween turnips.
Well, PJ,
I'm sure,
PJ will just show us some Halloween turnips.
Yeah.
It is genuinely some of the most horrifying stuff I have seen.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, we don't have any... What we do know is that that was a common practice at some point. We don't know necessarily when it originated, because obviously we don't have any ancient Halloween turnips.
Yeah.
They wouldn't survive. But there are some Celtic discussions about it. You can look at will-o'-the-wisps. You can have the idea that they were meant to ward off evil spirits. But at the same time, there's not really a ton of evidence that the Celts believed that you could ward off evil spirits with a scary lit-up turnip.
Yeah, that's very uncanny valley.
Yeah, but we also... It might go all the way back to the pagan era, the idea of using these turnips to light things as lanterns, which means it could come from a pagan society, but there's no evidence that it comes from a pagan practice.
That's one of those things that every time we're talking about some of the stuff here in history and how gray area a lot of things can be, if there are people that are trying to push some type of social movement or religious revival or some kind of concept while citing things that absolutely happened in history, this totally was a thing, they're more than likely lying.
Yeah.
Or at least conveniently ignoring many things in order to construct a worldview that they can then present, which is one of the things that, going back here again, Wicca is, it's 100% manufactured. Like, it is, maybe not 100%, it is
very
98% manufactured.
So we are roughly 10 minutes away from Patreon.
Give me 1 second. We're almost here. I'm getting there. There's one more aspect.
Well, that's the thing, is do we want to make Patreon essentially all of the reasons why Wicca is wrong?
Yes, that's a great idea. Yes, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, head over to Patreon. But yeah, so the last big major aspect of Halloween that we have trick-or-treating, we have jack-o'-lanterns, costumes. Zero evidence of costuming being involved in Samhain. None whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
They might have carried around turnip lanterns. No evidence that they were wearing costumes. None. We don't have examples of these costumes. We don't have writings about these costumes.
There's no artwork. There's no writings. There's no
costumes.
nothing.
Nothing whatsoever about costumes related to Samhain. And if there were, considering Samhain may have been a pan-Celtic holiday, and probably was, since it's one of those big four, we should have something from the Romans talking about it.
I can guarantee you, if there was documentation of it, you would have seen it pop up, or at least in the 19th century particularly, because of the revival of the British national identity over the course of the Victorian era. I mean, this is the time when people are eating mummies as part of a thing, as people are finding a newfound sense of spiritualism.
Yeah, and there's
different
just
ways. The fact that there would not be... Like, the Victorians would have keyed in on this very hard.
Now, there is a possibility that masks might have been involved, but that's not really... There would be masks involved in all sorts of things.
Those are used everywhere.
Masks
for literally any reason.
Among, like, so many different cultures that had no connection to each other as well.
And the other thing is that masks only get involved in Halloween, which is All Hallows Eve, but in Scottish, it would have been... In the Scottish dialect, it would have been All Hallows Even. And they just took out the all and part of the Hallows and made it Hallows Even. Halloween. That's where it comes from.
So that was going to be my question: is if not Samhain, where did Halloween come from and when?
Basically, it's a mix of, and that's what I was about to get to, is we don't have costuming involved in All Hallows Eve until much, 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 much later. And the same thing with the jack-o'-lanterns. We don't see those involved in specifically All Hallows Eve until much, 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 much later. Long after Celtic paganism has died out.
What was All Hallows Eve in its original form?
It was just the night before All Saints' Day.
Interesting.
It was in Catholicism. Usually, the night before a holiday is also a period of observation with a vigil.
So, what would happen on All Hallows Eve?
Just, candles, maybe a mass.
Okay.
But for the Celts, the way that their day worked was our night of October 31st would have been their beginning of November 1st.
Oh.
In the same way that Judaism considers the beginning of the Sabbath to be twilight on Friday, and it ends twilight on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same kind of thing, where the day was split up not into, a solar look at things. It was lunar. So
once the moon was visible,
once the moon
that was the
came
next
up,
day.
That was the next day. Once it was dark and you could see the moon, that's the next day. So that's the way they perceived it. That's why October 31st for us was November 1st for them halfway through.
And we don't go trick-or-treating at night on
October
31st.
31st. So what we don't see, though, is the use of costumes until like the 18th century, and it's in Scotland. It's not in Ireland, and it's not connected to... Samhain's gone by this point. It's not being practiced in any significant number anywhere, but as you're going around souling, and you might, at this point, trick-or-treating seems to have been developing, you actually would play a trick back then. When trick-or-treat was invented... There were tricks if you weren't given your treat.
What were the treats?
Usually a cake.
Okay.
I mean,
but
or like
when we think about
a candied apple,
also,
something like that.
It makes a lot of sense that the trick-or-treat aspect would come out of, like the trick part would come out of Scotland, because they had a culture that loved pranks. The whole idea of like the jinx, that the term hijinks comes from, kind of like mischief and people doing things they shouldn't do, that's Scottish. The Scottish loved playing pranks.
And what would the prank be in this case? Like, what is just an example of something?
Taking somebody's cow out of their barn and putting it in their front yard. I don't know. Like, it would depend on who you were. But if you're a Scottish teenager and you have approached somebody and they refuse to give you your treat, you don't want them to recognize you when you play your trick. So you wear a mask or a costume. There's also some belief that, there may have been an origination point going way back into Samhain where, the idea was to dress up and convince people you were one of the two a day. Zero evidence. It's just speculation. So every aspect of Halloween, basically, that we have today, some of them do seem to come from a pagan society, but not from their rites and rituals, which means it's not paganism. It's kind of like calling... the Super Bowl a pagan holiday or an American holiday.
It's like when you see a movie that's completely inaccurate, but it says based on a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Scotland still have Halloween? Because to my understanding, most of Europe does not.
That's the thing, is that's part of the reason that it's looked at as maybe being Celtic, is because it really only comes out of Britain and Ireland. So Britain, Ireland, and the United States and Canada are the places where you really have a lot of Halloween. And then you'll see Halloween down south, like along the Mexican border, will look a little bit different. It'll be much more Mexican themed, a lot closer to Day of the Dead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's their primary focus.
Yeah, but Day of the Dead itself is a syncretism between Mexica beliefs and rites and All Saints Day. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of the aesthetics of the Mexican traditions with that Catholic All Saints Day.
Yep.
Because what you do on Day of the Dead in Mexican tradition is and the idea that this goes all the way back to the pre-Christian times, is that you're going and you are giving offerings to the dead, to your ancestors. Now, in Christianity, you wouldn't give offerings. That doesn't make sense. You would give prayers.
Yep.
But so the offerings part probably comes out of the Mexican paganism, and then the that day being when you revere the dead and you pray for them comes out of Catholicism.
So how does All Hallows Eve, which is primarily just tricks and treats, maybe some costumes, primarily leading up into All Saints Day, how does that become modern Halloween with ghosts and warlocks and witches and all that fun
Commercialism.
stuff.
Literally commercialism. And it's also one of the reasons why Halloween is in more places than just like the United States, Canada, and Britain for things. It's because like you see Halloween is in Japan. Why? America.
Well,
Literally,
and
that's it.
also you got to think about it. Anglicanism, when it originates, is very Catholic. There are Anglo-Reformists and Anglo-Catholics. The Anglo-Catholics win. They win for the most part. Anglicanism, throughout its time, has been more Catholic than Reformist. Now, in the last 50 years, that has changed, and it's not even necessarily more Reformist. It's just a lot more liberal. And that's where the Anglican Catholic Church that I'm part of comes from, is basically being like, hey, what are we doing? But in the United States, where there's a lot more Protestantism, All Saints' Day kind of falls out of favor, and All Souls' Day with it. So you still have those folk practices of All Hallows' Eve and the trick-or-treating. That stuff becomes really popular in the 1800s. And then into the 1900s is when it really takes off.
Especially with industrialization and the ability to mass produce things like little candies and treats.
Yes.
Like before, if you were going to buy a box of treats, it would be like a specialty box. It's expensive. Inside are a couple little chocolates or other items. And that was pricey, which is why you would have something like that for a noble lady's tea party or something else. That wasn't a thing that you could just give children. And then with the mass industrialization and production and the availability, like chocolatiers become really big over the course of the late 1700s, heading in, especially the mid 1800s. It's huge. So all these little chocolate companies start popping up in different places across Europe and the United States,
Like Hershey.
producing things.
So it was that allowed you to just give out candy, and that's when trick-or-treating really takes off, because before that, it was mostly about just going around to your neighbors, and they'd either give you a cake or you would, leave their faucet on. I don't know. You get the point. So it's partially the fact that Catholicism doesn't have such a stronghold in America. So holidays like All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day don't get a ton of attention.
Loses the religiosity.
Yeah. And you just eventually develop something that's like it's more of a cultural practice that people do for fun. It's a harvest festival. So in that way, Halloween kind of in a roundabout way came back to doing the same thing as Samhain, but without the Celtic aspect.
Which in turn helps people promote this image that, oh yeah, it totally was this.
Yeah. But for a solid 1,000 years, Samhain's absent completely from All Saints' Day, All Souls' Day, Halloween. It doesn't exist almost, except in the dark corners of Ireland, where somebody's got, they're Catholic, but they've got a secret little shrine under the floorboards where they go and, pay homage to the ancestral religion. And again, a lot of Irish Catholics for a very long time, it took them until I think the 1300s to get rid of polygamy in Ireland.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Wasn't even aware that was a thing in Ireland.
Yeah, pre-Christian Ireland, men would have 3, 4, even 5 wives.
Or what it would be is that you'd have one wife, but then the others are concubines, like legal concubines.
Yeah. Also, another really interesting thing about it is from pre-Christian into Christian Ireland, you have a system where women have a lot of rights. Women can own property in their own right. Women can own businesses in their own right. Women can, be in a lot of positions in society that elsewhere women would be relegated from. And the idea that was something that Christianity introduced also isn't really true. It depended on what society you're looking at. There were societies that were more restrictive of women than Christians are. There were societies like the Celts, for example, who were less restrictive. The one thing in Celtic society, though, that women could not own was their children. The father legally owned the children, which meant that Celtic women could file for divorce if they wanted to. Divorce was a thing you could do, and you could take your property that you brought into the marriage with you. Sometimes you would even be able to split the property you accumulated while married, but your husband would take the kids.
What was the reasoning for that?
Ooh, we need to do an episode dedicated to divorce and stuff all around the world. I did a podcast episode on it. There's some weird ones.
Divorce unhinged.
There are some really weird ones. Just a bunch of guys.
My wife left me, and I'm happy about it.
Here's the Dude Bro podcast talking about divorce.
Yeah.
Except it's not going to be like other Dude Bro podcasts.
We should just do an episode where it's just us emulating the Whatever podcast.
What's that?
Really?
Yeah.
Do you really not know?
Who's on it?
I actually don't know their names.
I don't know any names of any people. That's the
It's
thing. I
that
can't help you
podcast
here.
where that one dude and the other dude will have on, like, and that one Asian chick who sits in the corner with the German World War I helmet, will have on a bunch of, like, OnlyFans models and then make fun of them.
Oh.
Yeah. Where it's like, did you expect these women to come to the table able to answer questions about complex geopolitical history?
All publicity is good publicity,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's the thing too, is that's the way the show works, is the girls come on it because as the audience is sitting there being a bunch of guys who are like, yeah, man, OnlyFans girls are whores and this is degenerate and society is crumbling because of them.
They're pulling out their debit card.
They're pulling out their debit card to go and subscribe to these women because that's the whole way the show works. It's the only reason these women would consistently go on it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go on it if the whole thing was just them being made fun of. They get subscriptions through it. It's a whole grift on both sides.
That's another good episode is horny hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
Through history.
Very true. But yeah, point is, looking at Halloween today, it's purely secular. It's not pagan. It's not Christian. And when either side tries to claim it, it's a little silly, especially because, the Christians will be mad about it and say, oh, it's pagan. They're usually fundamentalist Protestants, and they're wrong because it originated from All Souls Day and All Saints Day. The Celtic, the Wiccans who will say
I'm telling you this
it's,
right now. You saying that wouldn't matter to them because they would look at it like, oh, it derives from a thing with Catholicism. Yeah, it's basically paganism.
Exactly. So if you believe Catholicism is pagan, then yeah, sure, it's pagan, whatever. But on the one side, it's got some Catholic aspects. On the other side, it's got some stuff that came from a pre-Christian society, and seems to maybe we don't have any proven lineage, but there's definitely some place where you can look at it and go, I can see the influence. It's secular. It's fun. You go trick-or-treating. Take your kids trick-or-treating. Go to a Halloween party. Wear a silly costume. Bob for apples. Don't eat candy corn. That's disgusting.
I'm a candy corn
Yeah, I
stan.
know.
I'll eat it all day
filthy.
long.
But whatever you do, don't listen to Wiccans.
Yeah, and we'll tell you why over on Patreon. Are they gone?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, now that those people aren't watching. Oh wait, they're still here? Oh.
The hell are you doing?
PJ, cut the feed.
Yes, you had rich people with dynamite that in the name of trying to find stuff faster than anyone else would blow up historical sites in order to try and dig deeper faster.
So how stupid are Wicca?
I'm not going to use the word stupid. We're going to call them uninformed.
I want my legions back, bro.
You guys know what we know about Ostara? The name.
He's escalated from cult leader to god.
What are you talking